Okay, so let's dive into this. You ever look around your place
Yeah.
and just feel like things have kind of appeared out of nowhere?
Multiplied, you mean?
Right.
Like that old treadmill, maybe,
Yeah.
where those boxes stacked up.
Exactly. Or the boxes in the garage, the ones you haven't looked in for years, that spare room that's just become a void.
Oh, definitely. A black hole of forgotten stuff.
Right. And look, if you're listening in Spanaway or anywhere around North Pierce County, this probably sounds pretty familiar.
It's a common experience for sure.
Totally. So today, we're doing a deep dive into tackling exactly that problem. We're looking at a service called Rapid Haul Away.
Right. And sort of exploring what their approach tells us about, well, getting rid of unwanted stuff efficiently and responsibly.
And what's really interesting is not just that they exist, but why. You mentioned they handle a huge range.
Yeah, everything from, say, a single broken washing machine right up to clearing out an entire estate. And that wide scope, it really highlights how different people's needs are when it comes to decluttering. It's not always a DIY job.
No, definitely not. And to get that local angle, let's think about Spanaway for a sec. It's got a population around, what, 35,000?
Roughly, yeah. And a pretty high rate of home ownership.
Which is key, right? Owning a home often means, well, accumulating things over time.
It does. And you add in the proximity to JBLM, the Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Right, lots of military families moving in and out.
Exactly. So you have both long-term residents who've gathered stuff and also people needing quick turnarounds for moves for PCSing. That creates a real need for efficient removal services.
You can just picture it. Someone moves into a new place, finds junk left behind, or a family prepping for a move needs to seriously downsize fast.
Absolutely. It's managing life transitions and also the physical stuff that comes with them.
Yeah, the physical baggage. And Rapid Haul Away, it seems like they're hitting on those very relatable scenarios. Their info mentions those, quote, almost working appliances.
Huh. We all have one of those, don't we?
Totally. Or furniture that's just seen better days, gathering dust. And those zones in the house that just become accidental storage.
Unintentional museums of things we don't use.
So why not just DIY it? Why call someone? What's the hurdle?
Well, it often comes down to time, effort, and logistics. DIY sounds simple, but then you're facing the actual heavy lifting, figuring out where to legally dump different things.
Like old appliances or electronics.
Exactly. And potential costs, like landfill fees, truck rentals.
Yeah.
It adds up. A service like this offers convenience. They handle the grunt work and the know-how.
And Rapid Haul Away positions themselves as this smarter alternative, specifically for Spanaway. They talk about local expertise, fair pricing.
That local expertise can be important. Knowing the specific disposal sites or recycling options, local regulations in North Pierce County, that saves you hassle.
And they really push the convenience angle, fast scheduling, easy booking. And these promises. No rescheduling, no surprise fees, no property damage. That sounds pretty good when you're stressed about clutter.
It addresses the common pain points, doesn't it? The things that make people hesitant about hiring help.
Yeah. Plus, they handle virtually everything except hazardous waste, and you can get a free quote just by texting or calling. The number's 253-820-6301.
And that quote process itself is interesting. Texting pictures.
Right. What's the advantage there?
It allows for a much quicker, more tailored estimate up front. Instead of a vague hourly rate or a generic price list, they see the scope of your job.
So less chance of sticker shock later.
Exactly. More transparency. Builds trust from the start. They mention no sales pressure, too.
Which is always nice. You don't want to feel cornered into a service.
No. And this adaptive approach, scaling from clearing one room to a whole property, it shows they understand the spectrum of needs.
Some people just have a bulky sofa. Others have years of accumulation to deal with, or maybe an inherited property.
Precisely. And you need a service flexible enough for both ends of that spectrum.
They also have these little snippets in their materials, kind of like mini testimonials. Things like showed up early, finished in half the time I expected, even found items under the junk I thought were long gone. What do those tell you?
They hint at reliability, which is crucial. Showing up on time, working efficiently.
Yeah.
That's huge. And the finding lost items bit. That speaks to maybe a thoroughness or just the surprising upside of decluttering.
Yeah, you never know what treasures are buried. So let's break down some specific services. Home cleanouts, big one for homeowners, right? Spare rooms, basements.
Absolutely. Sometimes it just gets overwhelming, the sheer volume. A professional team brings the manpower, the truck space, the plan to just get it done.
And they mentioned the benefit for sellers, better photos, showings.
Makes sense. A clean, decluttered space always shows better, feels bigger, could lead to quicker sales, maybe better offers.
Okay, then there are estate and foreclosure cleanouts. These sound heavier, more sensitive.
They definitely can be. You're often dealing with difficult circumstances, grief, or tight deadlines.
So what's the advantage of a pro service there?
Efficiency and respect, really. Handling potentially personal belongings, clearing a whole property quickly and discreetly. It takes a burden off the family or the bank. They need to manage furniture, appliances, personal effects, everything.
Right. Okay, shifting gears. Garage cleanouts. Almost a universal problem, I think.
Huh, tell me about it. Garage has become the land of forgotten things.
They mentioned seasonal decorations, old hobbies.
Abandoned projects, sports gear the kids outgrew 5 years ago.
Yeah. So when does it make sense to call for help with the garage?
Probably when you can't use it for its main purpose anymore, like parking your car. Or when the thought of tackling it yourself just feels completely paralyzing. It's about reclaiming that valuable space.
Makes sense. What about outdoor stuff? They do light demolition, old sheds.
Yeah, things that might be unsafe or just an eyesore, like a rickety old fence or a shed that's falling apart.
Why not just grab a sledgehammer yourself?
Well, safety is a big one. Depending on the structure, there can be risks. Plus, what do you do with all of the debris afterwards? Wood, concrete, metal.
Right, the disposal.
They handle the demo and the removal of all the components.
Yeah.
Saves you multiple steps and potential hazards.
Okay. And for the really big jobs, comprehensive property cleanouts. Maybe prepping a house for the market or between renters.
Exactly. These often involve a huge mix of items, maybe leftover construction materials, yard waste, indoor clutter. It requires more planning, maybe bigger trucks or equipment.
So efficiency is key there.
Efficiency and having the right resources to handle the scale of it quickly.
Let's talk disposal, because that feels really important now. Appliance recycling, they mentioned refrigerators, stoves, washers. Why is that specialized?
Well, many appliances, especially older ones like fridges or air conditioners, contain refrigerants or other chemicals that need careful handling according to environmental rules.
Ah, okay. Can't just chuck them in a landfill.
Not responsibly, no. Plus, they contain valuable metals that can be recovered through proper recycling. A service that does this ensures it's done right, environmentally speaking.
Same idea for TVs and electronics, the e-waste problem.
Pretty much. Old TVs, computers, printers, game consoles, they have metals worth recovering, but also potentially toxic stuff like lead or mercury.
And data security, maybe, on old computers?
That's another huge factor. Responsible e-waste disposal should include secure data destruction. You don't want personal info floating around.
Good point. Okay, what about yard waste? Branches, leaves. They say no bagging needed.
Yeah, that's a nice perk. Especially after a storm or a big landscaping project in the PNW, you can end up with piles of debris.
And bagging it all is a pain.
It really is. And sometimes your regular city pickup has limits. They just come and collect the pile, which saves a lot of time and effort.
Makes sense. Then there's hot tub removal. That sounds complicated.
Oh, they are notoriously tricky.
Yeah.
Heavy, awkward, and you've got electrical and plumbing connections to deal with safely.
Not really a DIY weekend project for most people.
Probably not advisable, no. Requires specific tools, knowledge for disconnection, and sheer manpower to move it and dismantle it for disposal.
Okay. And mattresses. Why are mattresses